All right, we are live on another edition of the Edlow Podcast. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. This is another fun one for me. I met Joe Gamble Phillips not too long ago. Actually, we never really crossed paths until we were at the Ugly Dojo and heard we were working
Yeah,
together. And then,
yeah.
you know, it was just, yeah, I felt like we had good chemistry, and just talking with you in the back, it just felt like it was just really cool to get to know you. And wasn't long before I'm like, man, I got to get you on the podcast.
Thank you, man, for actually considering me and having me on. I enjoy these, so right on, dude.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to have you on. And tell me, how did you get hooked up in the Ugly Dojo and in wrestling?
So I've been a fan, just like you and everybody else in the business of pro wrestling since diapers, and I always had like aspirations and dreams to be a wrestler, but it wasn't until 2014. My best friend Julius, who goes by Jew Diz, he was like, man, you want to go to an indie show? And we were down in Southern California, and I was like, yeah, man, let's go. So my ex-wife and his wife at the time were like, yeah, y'all need to get out, go do something. So we went to an indie show down there, and as we're sitting there, we're watching, and I'm like, man, we could do this stuff. He's like, yeah. So we met the booker and the promoter for the company down there, and the head trainer at the time, and he was like, if you guys are serious, show up at this address on this date. And sure enough, that following Monday, we were there, and we got the hell beat out of us for 3 hours. And it was like old school type stuff where the trainer's like, all right, I want to see what you guys are made of. We went through the night. We were back the next day, and the trainer's like, okay, well, you guys can stay. We'll train you. We'll teach you how to be
Nice,
wrestlers. So I got into it in 2014 and stuck with it.
nice. So when did you make the move over to working with the Ugly Dojo?
So when I left active duty military in 2016 and was assigned
Okay.
to a reserve unit. And I moved back to Stockton, and I was trying to find somewhere to train. And randomly, Ugly sent me a message within that time frame and was like, "Hey man, where you from?" And I told him I'm from San Francisco, but I started my training in SoCal. And he was like, "Well, hey, if you're ever up in the Sacramento area, let me know." I was like, "All right, cool." But I never really got up to that area until like 2018, and I had started doing like SPW and uh, a couple of other places that would actually open the door to me to let me wrestle. And I think he also had seen that I was training down in San Jose with Pro Wrestling Revolution,
Mm,
and
mhm.
he's like, "Hey man, if you need a spot to train or whatever, come through." So I ended up running into him at a show, and we started talking. And he was like, "Dude, I want to train you. I want to teach you how to do this." And so there was a spot, after Virgil Flint passed away, unfortunately, rest in peace, Virgil Flint. Um, he started training at Virgil Flint's spot. So I started going
Mm.
there, and I started sitting under his learning tree and picking up stuff. And I think uh, with him, and then like the little bit of time I spent with Zach Reeb and Rick Luxury and
Mm.
the bomber Rob Thompson, um, just the understanding of psychology and chain wrestling and stuff like that. Like he's really who placed a lot of that stuff into my mind so that I could better understand the flow of wrestling and matches and stuff like that. So ever since that first time meeting him and then training with him, I've been stuck to that dude like glue ever since.
Yeah, man. So you said you were active duty. What branch?
United States Marine Corps.
Oh, wow. How long did you spend in the Marine Corps?
I spent 5 years on active duty in the United States Marines, and then I spent 3 years in the reserves and in active ready reserve. Uh, so it was more like the time spent in the military was more like close to 9 years.
Mm.
I tried to extend my time out to deploy with my reserve unit, but I got kicked off uh, the list or I got booted from the boat space, as they say, from the deployment. So I just left early, or I ended
Mm.
my reserve time early and was honorably discharged from the Marine Corps in 2020,
Mm.
and haven't looked back since.
Mm. What did you think I mean, looking back on your time, were you glad you did that or were you not?
I, to be completely honest with you, man, the Marine Corps saved my life.
Mm. How so?
My football career was over. I knew that I was never going to play another down of football and make a dollar from it again.
Mm.
Uh, I knew that my opportunity to do anything else, as it was in regard to pro football, was never going to happen.
Mm.
So I was starting to spiral down, and I was like, dude, I got to figure something out. You know, I had lost my home, I lost my car. The young lady I was with at the time, she basically dumped me because there was nothing left to provide to her. Uh,
Mhm.
so I was like, I need an option. And it was funny. I was walking out of the 24-hour fitness in San Leandro, right next to
Mhm.
Bayfair Mall, and I
Mhm.
was on my way to class. And I walked out of the gym, and I was pretty jacked up. And it's funny because I used to work out with Damian Grundy. I don't know if you know who
Oh, yeah.
Damian Grundy is. Yeah,
Oh, I very
yeah.
much know Damian Grundy, yeah.
I used to work out with Grundy at the 24-hour fitness in San Leandro all the time. And so I'm walking out of the gym, and I was maybe 220, 225 at that time. I was pretty big. And this Marine recruiter saw me, Martin Acosta. I don't know if he's still in the Corps or not, but shout out to him. And he stops me and he goes, "Hey, man, you interested in the military?" I was like, "Hell no." And he's like, "All right, well, here's my card. If you change your mind, come see me." 2 weeks later, I was sitting in his office signing my life away. So
Wow.
I was like, dude, I needed a change. I was headed down a really, really dark path. Um, and I wasn't involved in anything criminal or anything like that. It was just, I knew that if I wouldn't have made that decision, I was probably going to end up in a really bad place. I was going to end up in a bad place or dead, at the
Mm.
rate I was going with what it was that I was trying to do. Um,
Mm.
so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get out of this and finish my education, and pursue something else. And then I ended up going into the military.
Mm. Mm. So you mentioned real quick, you go I feel like we're kinda going backwards a little bit, but you played pro football. Tell us about your football career.
So football for me, um, it was interesting how it happened for me. Um, After high school, I didn't go to college for football. I didn't go to college at all. I wasted a year of my life doing nothing. And my dad and my mom was like, "Hey, you need to figure this out. You got until you're 19 to get out of the house. Once you're 19, you got to go." So I thought they were BS. 19 came rolling around. My dad was like, "Time to go, bro. Pack your things and go." And he put me out. He was like, "You got to fend for yourself." You know, because I told him a long time ago that I wanted to get into law enforcement, but he was like, "You haven't taken the steps or, the avenues to do that. So you got to go." So he gave me a little bit of money and he was like, "You're on your own." I went back to San Francisco and I was living with my Aunt Valerie. I love her very much. It's my favorite aunt. I was living with her for a little while and I had put some strain on her because she she was a foster care parent, so she had a lot of foster kids, and I was putting some strain on her because I wasn't supposed to be in her place. I tried living with my sister, that didn't work out. I had a job at the airport, working at the airport, um, that didn't work out. I was 19. I was just being stupid and making dumb decisions, and I ended up living on the street. I was sleeping in
Mm.
front of the San Francisco Public Library for a while,
Oh, wow.
homeless, nowhere to go, no food, no nothing. I never panhandled, but I would try to pump people's gas for them or stuff like that just to make a quick dollar or something. Uh, there was this guy who worked at the Boston Market in San Francisco, and his name was Carlos, and he was the nighttime manager and janitor there. And he saw me one night, and he was like, "Hey, you hungry?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "We throw out fresh food every night." He's like, "I'll
Mm.
open this dumpster for you. You can grab some food." And it was all packaged in bags and stuff. So that's how I ate. And a guy from high school that I went to school with was like, "Hey man, what are you doing down here? You need a place." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, bet I'll hook you up with a place." So he gave me a place to live with him, and he helped me get enrolled into school at City College, San Francisco. And he was like, "Come play football." Um, so I started playing football at City College, and I left there and ended up getting into another school in the South, and I played football there. And then I got an opportunity to try to play indoor football, and I went to a couple of tryouts. I played for an indoor football team in Stockton for a little bit. And then from there, I tried to go to the NFL. Didn't work out. You know, if you don't go to a Division One or at least a 1AA, you kind of don't matter. It's very
Mhm.
political. But I still had some tryouts with a couple of pro teams. I didn't make it. You know, I was at the time pretty fast and understood how to play the game, but that wasn't enough. So I walked away from football and I enrolled myself into another school to try to finish my degree.
Mm.
But yeah,
Wow. Wow, that's crazy. So let's go back a little bit and talk about some of that stuff. So tell me what the mindset is. I mean, you know, you're kicked out at 19, you move around a few places and you end up homeless. That first night when you're homeless, like, what is that like?
it's scary.
Yeah.
It's freaking terrifying. I didn't
Mhm.
sleep because you're surrounded by people. And if you've ever been in downtown San Francisco on Market Street
Mhm.
and you've been close to the Tenderloin and stuff like that, like it's freaking zombie land, bro. Like
Mhm.
it's bad. And being a young kid, like, yeah, I had some size to me and, you know, I could fend for myself. But at the same time, it's like, bro, like, this is freaking scary.
Yeah.
So at night, I didn't sleep. I slept in the daytime.
Mhm.
And I actually picked that trick up from another homeless guy I met that was down there. He was like, never sleep at night, sleep in the day.
Mm.
So this guy's his name was Dan.
Mhm.
Really, really interesting dude. He was homeless for reasons that most people wouldn't think were serious. Dan was
Mm.
actually incredibly wealthy, and he gave up everything because he got tired of the responsibility of life. So
Mm.
he left his wife, he left his kids, and legit was just a homeless man.
Mm.
But he never panhandled. He never begged for food or money. He would walk into Burger King and pay for his own meal and walk out. And dude was filthier than filthy could be.
Mm.
But so Dan, he was like, hey, you sleep during the day, and you stay awake at night because there's a lot that happens at night. You know, it's dark, people can't see, so people get robbed, they get molested, they get hurt. You know, whatever the case may be. Some people have even been killed. So he would tell
Mm.
them to sleep during the day and stay awake at night so that you can see what's going on around you.
Mm.
But yeah, homelessness at 19, dude, is like the weirdest. You walk in the streets, you don't bathe. There's nowhere really for you to go. You see people that you know, and like they're like, "What are you doing?" And they don't talk to you. I even had an aunt. She worked at that library. She worked at the San Francisco Public Library, and there's an employee entrance that was off a market. I forget the side street that's there. Um, and so I would sleep in that doorway, and she would come through that. She would come to that doorway and literally open the door and step over me, and I would say, "Hey, auntie, it's me," and she would just completely ignore me.
Wow.
And that stuck with me, man, to this day. So like, if I ever see or speak to her, like it's one of those things like, hey, how you doing? I keep it moving because her actions motivated me to get out of that situation as well. So but homelessness at 19 is it freaking sucks, dude. Like it's rough.
Yeah. As you're doing that, I mean, what do you do when you're homeless? I mean, to pass the time.
Man, truthfully, a lot of my time was spent crying, trying to figure
Mm.
things out, reaching out to people, family, trying to get connected to somebody. Um, and it's hard when most of the people you reach out to are in a bad situation too. You know,
Mm. Mhm.
I tried going home, I couldn't. I ended up going to this men's home in Oakland, California, and that's how I ended up actually first initially getting off of the street before I ended up back in San Francisco trying to play ball. Um, but I ended up in this men's home in Oakland, California, part of this church. Um, that was interesting in itself because most of the guys that were in that place were also homeless. But it was
Mm.
weird for me because I was 19. These dudes were grown men, you know, late
Mhm.
20s, early 30s, some older. So it was different. But even a part of that, I attended the church there, did some other stuff. But I even had some help too from a gentleman by the name of Randy Munman, um, who's an absolute gem of a man. He's a very successful realtor now. But him and his first wife, they helped me out too. There's a few people that helped me out along the way. Um, Thad Benson, Charles Lindsay, um, Charles Armstrong, Marlon Washington Jr., uh, my man Dev the Dude, a few other people that helped me out along the way. Um, Travis Prosser, uh, just there were some interesting people in my life that were trying to help me out, push me in a certain direction. Like I said, man, I was headed down a pretty rough road. So
Yeah. Now, as you're doing this now, curious with your parents, do you have siblings?
I do, I do. I
Mhm.
have siblings, but in all transparency, my siblings and I aren't as close.
Mm,
Um, Unfortunately, we all walk different paths in life. I still connect with one or two of my sisters via social media, but um, I don't really have too much connection to my brothers. Um, um, I lost a brother a couple years ago to a fentanyl overdose. I have another
mm,
brother who's in prison.
mm,
I have another brother that I don't talk to because my career it doesn't coincide with his lifestyle, so I just don't communicate with him at all.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
I have an older brother who's been a drug addict for many years. Um, I have a younger brother who's incredibly talented that I talk to as much as I can. But I'm like my relationship with my siblings are displaced. I was actually blessed with two sets of parents. I have a biological mother who passed away in 2016, and I have a biological father who's still living. And then I have an adopted father and adopted mother that are both still living that were examples in my life to kind of encourage me to live a certain way as well. So, uh, as far as my siblings go, like we're not as connected as I wish we were, but life happens, you know?
yeah, yeah. So your adopted parents are or were they the ones that told you at 19 time to go, or was it the biological ones?
It was my adopted parents. My
Oh,
adopted
yeah.
mom was like, yeah, you gotta go.
Mhm,
And my dad was like, you gotta go. Uh,
mhm.
it was, I understood why they were doing it. Um, and I appreciate them for it. Uh, I wish they hadn't have, but it was a major life lesson. And because of that, I can tell you now, I'll do whatever it takes to never be on the street again.
Yeah.
As long as
Well,
it's legal. Uh,
yeah,
so,
right,
um,
right.
but yeah, they were the ones that were like, nah, you gotta go. My adopted dad is a successful man. He played pro ball,
Mm,
graduated from UCLA. He became a peace officer. He was a cop as well. He retired, medically retired in 2014. And to this day, he's still motivation and he still encourages me to be the best version of myself that I can be. As it relates to the job, he's always giving me some tidbits of information on how to do things and how to be. Um, One thing that he taught me to do to this day, as far as this job goes, is to remain personable and to never take anything personally. People have bad days. People have bad minutes, hours, and seconds. He was like, don't take it personal. It's not your life, it's theirs.
mhm.
So uh, I hold on to that and being able to communicate because being able to talk to people will probably save your life.
Well, the interesting thing about that too is you as a peace officer, as a sheriff, you are often running into people at the worst days of their lives. So
Absolutely.
that's really good advice. Tell me now, you mentioned a few times you're like, I was headed down a wrong path, and you were kind of saying how, things were getting real dark and hearing some of your siblings and what they've gone through with drugs and being in prison and various things. With that kind of surrounding you, uh, how hard is it to stay away from those dark places and those going down those those roads. I guess what I'm asking is it harder for you in those situations? And does it also how is it that you kind of got out of that when the others didn't?
So something I learned very early on was your surroundings will dictate the kind of individual you become.
Hmm.
I grew up in Babyhurst Point, San Francisco, California. And if you don't know anything about the Baby District of San Francisco, it's probably one of the roughest places to come up.
Hmm.
Um, I just didn't want that life for myself. I wanted to become successful, have kids, be a husband, raise my kids, be able to see the opposite side of life from the side that I grew up seeing. Um, I just didn't. I just didn't want to fall in a place like that. I just didn't want my life to be that. Like something that I would tell myself often was, when I'm older, I want to look back on my life and go, "Man, I did that," rather than, "Man, I wish I could have done that." Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I'm almost 40, right? And
Hmm.
I look around at my life and I go, "Okay, I played ball. I became a wrestler. I got into law enforcement. I got a degree in college. I became somebody's husband at one point in time. I have two wonderful kids. I'm a homeowner. I was the first in my family to become a homeowner, right? Like the first of me and my siblings. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, I look back on that and I go, man, like, had I have continued to go the path I was going, and or not even that, but just being involved in like what I grew up seeing, I wouldn't be here.
Hmm.
And I just didn't want to fall into that rat race of nothingness and never
Hmm.
seeing more than San Francisco, never doing more than, what I've done. Freaking Marine Corps, I got to see the world. I got to see other parts of the country, you know. I got to have experiences. I got to be a, a part of a brotherhood that I have friends for the rest of my life who I can call at 2 o'clock in the morning if something's wrong. Like I just did not want to be a product of my environment.
Hmm.
Um, like I just didn't want it. I
Yeah.
hated what I saw. I hated what I saw my friends become. I hated what I saw my siblings become. I just didn't want to. I just didn't, want to be a part of that.
I hear you, man, and that's the thing. I mean, it's so interesting because I certainly didn't have as rough of an upbringing as you had, but there were problems. I've shared on my podcast multiple times. My dad is a recovered drug addict. He got clean when I was about 17 years old, and so that first 17 years was pretty up and down and rough, right? But it's interesting because you can look at that in one or two ways. You could look at that, observe that, and you can learn from their mistakes, or you can go down that same road.
Yeah,
And I was kind of the guy where I was like, "Well, I'm never gonna do that." You know what I mean? Like, that look at the mess that's been caused by this. And now my dad, he's been 25, 26 years sober, and, like, he's a great guy, and he's done an amazing, he's an amazing guy, he really is, and he's worked very, very hard to clean up his life. But man, that was a rough go. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And so if there's somebody out there who maybe is in a similar situation as you found yourself in, would you tell that person? Like, what traits could they develop, or what mindset would you recommend they have to not, um, uh, you know, to not go down that path?
Um, well, everybody's mindset and level of motivation is different, right?
Mhm.
For the advice I would give would be your situation is not your destination. It's not the last resort. Like that's not the end. Um, everyone has a purpose, right? And whether you see it within yourself or not, understanding that your life truly is not your life. Your life belongs to someone else.
Mhm.
And it belongs to people that see you as more than what you actually are. But not only that, if you're a man of faith, your life belongs to God.
Yeah.
And for me, I knew that God had a purpose and plan for my life.
Mhm.
I didn't know at the time what it was. I didn't know why I was dealing with what I was dealing with or going through what I was going through, but I knew that it wasn't my final destination and that there was something that I had to do. So that in itself was enough motivation for me coming to the understanding that this is not my life. My life belongs to someone else. As I've gotten older and accomplished the things that I've tried to accomplish, my life belongs to my kids. It belongs to people that I call friend. My life belongs to people that I don't even know that need help.
Mhm.
Um, my life belongs to, my future significant other, whoever that might be.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm hoping it's a particular person, but whoever that might be, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like my life does
Yeah.
not belong to me. And because I have that understanding, I have to be the best version of myself, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So my advice to whoever is dealing with that, come into that mindset of understanding your life's not yours. It belongs to other people. And what you do with it can either benefit or destroy other people.
Mm. It's really interesting. I think that a lot of people, when I think what I like about what you just said is, I'm a man of faith as well, and we hear a lot about in the scriptures about charity,
Hmm.
and and love God, love your neighbor, and those types of things. And the interesting thing is, man, I have seen people who've become incredibly selfish, completely destroy everything around them, burn it all down,
Yeah,
and 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 it's hard to watch. It's hard
yeah,
to watch when it's happening.
yeah,
Like you sit there and you watch it, and you're begging people to not, and they can't help it. And
yeah.
and that's rough. And so I think that's a great way to look at it. I think the other thing too, at least what I tell people too, is there's like and maybe you can comment on this as well. Because I know in like in those communities in particular, my community was kind of like this too when I was younger. Is that there's a lot of people out there who will tell you that that's all it can be, that that's it, right? Like there is no else. That doesn't work for you, right? Um, and man, I just think that's so defeating. That when you have all those people saying, I tell people all the time. I tell my kids, I'm like, you can't listen to anybody who tells you you can't do it. You know what I mean? Because they
Yeah,
can't do it. They're telling you
yeah.
that because they can't do it. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. I mean, um, and so yeah, did you now let me ask you, so you go into the Marine Corps. Did you actually serve in any wartime?
So I did go into the Corps. I served in wartime. We all had a hand in the Afghan war.
Hmm,
Um, it's a topic that I don't always talk about or like to talk about.
yeah.
Um, but I did serve in wartime along with a few other people who are probably going to see this. We might not have deployed together, but um, I did serve in wartime, and it was an interesting time period, one that is hard to forget, but it's one that you try not to think about.
Mm,
Um, I have some friends that didn't come back, and I have
mm,
some friends that did. And the ones that did come back couldn't hack it. So they took themselves out. And
mm,
I sincerely miss them. Lance Corporal Dustin Farron, Sergeant Israel J. Pinatak, you know, um, Lance Corporal Nate Mortson are the main three that sit um, in my heart because we went through hard times together. Um, and it sucks because before Farron took his own life, I talked to him. I was on the
mm,
phone with him. I was driving on the freeway, and I was in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was driving on the freeway. I think I was headed to a wrestling event. Actually,
mm.
I was headed to an APW event, and Dustin he was on the phone and he was telling me how he was going through some stuff mentally, and I was trying to be encouraging to him. Not too long after that, Dustin took his life.
Mm.
Um, I miss him every day.
Do you? I actually, another person you probably have talked to Riv. He served, and I don't know if you ever had a chance to talk to Anthony Rivera. He was trained at SPW. He was in the army and he served in Iraq, and talks a little bit about survivor's guilt. Do you have anything about like that? Like why did I make it when others didn't, and things like that?
All the time.
Yeah. How do you deal with that?
I don't talk about it.
Mm,
I talk to a therapist,
mm,
but I don't openly talk about how I deal with it. Um,
mm,
we all have our private moments. I
mm,
know that I try to keep my mind busy with other things, but majority of the time I cry because I
yeah.
miss my friends. Um, I wish that there was more that I could have done, uh, but we all have our time. And one thing about Marines is we that's what we are here for. Marines are here to die
Mm,
for the sake of other people, including our brothers and sisters at arms. So um, I, I I have remorse all the time, especially for the guys that they serve and then they come home and they take their own life, or like guys like Adam Gibson, who was deputy with the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office, who served in wartime, and he came home and he lost his life here doing the job.
mm,
Um, it sucks,
mm,
but I'm often reminded that that's what Marines do.
mm,
We die so that others may live.
mm. Let me ask you a question, and if you don't want to talk about it, it's totally fine. I understand, but there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions about America going into Afghanistan, America going into Iraq. You were over there and you had a chance to kind of see firsthand what it was like. Um, the people that are over there, can you give me a sense of what it's like over there? Is that like what the people are like, and what the maybe Taliban and those things, like the things that you saw that kind of swayed your view one way or the other?
I'll say this: in spite of what people hear on the news, on TV, wherever they get their information, there's three sides to every story. There's our truth, there's their truth, and there's the truth.
Mm,
So that's all I'll say about it. Um,
mm,
the lifestyle over there and the dynamic is different depending on what kind of job you're doing.
mm,
If you're a grunt, you fight. If you're support, you aid in the fight. Um, but it is what it is.
mhm. The people over there who were Afghani, I mean, did you run into a lot of people who you just cared for, you liked? Or was it all just like, you look, you're just dealing with combat and you don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, I'm talking about
It's
civilians.
it depends on, like I said, if you're a grunt, you fight. If
Mm,
you're support, you aid in that fight.
mm,
Um, what I did was separate from what others did.
mm,
Special MAGTAF is a special MAGTAF. You know,
mm,
um, I won't get into it,
mhm,
but the discussions that were had with people, some were interesting and some weren't so interesting.
mm,
Um, I just know that there's more to this world than just America, and
mhm,
a lot of people spend too much time watching the news and listening to it and don't know the truth. They just know a truth that's being shared from one perspective.
Mm.
Um, I served our country. I did it proudly, and I walked away from it honorably. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. So, um, obviously coming home, and I'm sure you mentioned, you talked to a therapist. I'm assuming that's through the VA. How is it navigating the VA? That's got
It
to be
sucks.
hard.
It
Yeah.
sucks. The net the V the VA. Veterans aren't cared about in a manner that they should be cared about, right?
Mhm.
Because there's guys and women that come back over here and that aren't taken care of in a manner that they should be. There's no reason why a 22-year-old combat veteran is not being taken care of in the way that he should be.
Mhm.
You placed a rifle in his hands at 18 and you sent him to another country to fight, and he comes back home and he sleeps in his closet because he likes the darkness and he doesn't want to hear the sounds of the rest of the world. He sees his enemy's face over and over and over again. He's reminded of the friends and the guys that he was with that he can no longer see. He's being spoon fed medications to help suppress the stuff that he can't deal with mentally. And eventually becomes too much and he kills himself. The VA doesn't take as good a care of its veterans as it should. It was even worse with the Vietnam guys. So the
Mhm.
little bit that we're getting now is not even enough considering what everybody has to deal with.
Mhm.
You know, you come home and your wife, she doesn't want to be with you anymore, or your husband doesn't want to be with you anymore. You don't know how to talk to your kids. You spend hours and hours and hours staring into nowhere because you're still trying to suppress and cope with everything. You have no other outlets. You're trying to readapt to civilian society. And you show up to work, and the one guy that is doing the job that you do, that just so happens to be the supervisor, is late every single day. But you're on time because you're early. You got to deal with the mindsets. It's the VA just doesn't do its due diligence in taking care of veterans, and these are just small things that a veteran, especially who serves in combat, has to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, they'll
And it's
spoon feed you
also,
medications, but they won't give you the necessary help that you need, or they'll send you to a therapist who has no idea what the heck you're talking about.
mhm, mhm. What's interesting too? It's got to be hard. Like you're going over there and you're fighting in a war and you're fighting people and doing all these things. And then you come back and it's got to be frustrating to hear all the little gripes of all those people you're working with. You know what I mean? And you're sitting there and you're like, you go over there and you're fighting this war, you're fighting for your life, you're fighting for your country. And then you come back here and you have a mundane job and there's somebody over there complaining about their iPhone not working or, after all the things you've seen, that's gotta be rough.
Um, yeah, and the dark humor in you wants to make fun of them. But
Mhm,
if you do, you'll lose your job
mhm,
because if you're not politically correct, you're wrong.
mhm,
So
mhm,
yeah, people complain about stuff, not realizing just how awesome their actual freedoms are. Simple
mhm,
stuff like putting your hands in your pockets and chewing bubble gum or driving a
mhm,
car.
mhm.
People take that for granted and they complain about it all the time. You
Mhm.
want to shake them, but you can't. You want to
Right.
tell them you think you got it bad. You have no idea. You
Mhm,
ever slept in a hole in the ground for several
mhm,
days at a time and had a sergeant tell you to dig it out because that's where they'll probably find you when you're gone?
mhm,
Like, people complain about some of the most minuscule stuff and they've never been through anything. And they're just, oh, my laptop doesn't work, or oh, I really wanted that car. Who
mhm.
cares?
Mhm.
Who cares?
You know, it's so interesting to me that the most successful people and the biggest grinders are the ones who've been through the hardest stuff. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? And there's just something about it. If you look at all of these people who have been wildly successful, for the most part, not all of them, but they all came from really dark places, you know? And it's just so fascinating to me that I mean, like you're obviously a pretty successful guy. You just talked about it. You came from, a really rough place and you're a homeowner and you've got a job. You're serving in law enforcement. Honorably served your country. You're a father. Like all of these things. And you've seen some of you've been homeless, you've been in war. I mean, you want to talk about how you did life. I mean, like at 40 years old, you've done more than most people do in a lifetime. That's pretty impressive.
Almost 40.
What's that? Yeah,
Almost
almost
40.
40. Well, I'm 43, so I'm already there.
Yeah. I'm
That
trying to
was what
catch
was so
up, man.
funny. That was what was so funny when I met you. I had no idea. I was like, "Oh man, I'm an old guy, man." I'm like, "I'm 40." I was 42. I was like, "I'm 42," and then you told me, and I was like, "Oh, perfect. Then we're gonna get along great," you know?
We saw cool stuff, bro.
Yeah,
We had real
exactly.
TV and music and movies, man.
Yeah, it's so true, man. So now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about. So you mentioned, you had an opportunity to be married and you have two kids.
Yep.
So tell me where in the timeline did you get married and where did your kids come? Like where were you in life when that was all going on?
So I got married in 2012, August 10th, 2012. Got married at Camp Pendleton to my ex-wife. Her and I met in high school, but we never dated. Went to prom together, but we never dated.
Mm,
Um, and we ran into each other 6 years after high school. Um, and I asked her out. She said, "Sure, yeah." Um, we dated. I asked her to marry me after 11 months. She said, "Yeah." We got married. Um, we were married for a few years, and we had our son in 2015. We had our son. We split. We separated in 2019. I ended up meeting another young lady in 2020, uh, or no, 2021. Um, that was short lived, but kid came from that. That was my daughter. She was born in 2022 in September. So um, I'm divorced now. Been divorced for a while, um, but I have two wonderful kids. One from my marriage and one from a post-marriage relationship that didn't last very long. I have no regrets about my kids. I do regret not being able to fix my marriage and relationships sometimes, but marriage is a two-way street. If one person wants to work and change themselves and the other doesn't, there's no point in staying together.
that's
So,
so true, man. That's so
um,
true. I've once heard a person say you being a religious man, if you can look your savior in the eye and say you did everything you could, that's all you need to be able to do. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, there's a couple things that stick to me in regard to that. One is knowing who God is, and two is Him knowing who you are. And on the day of judgment, the biggest thing that scares me is Him saying, "I don't know you. Depart from me."
Mm,
Um, and there's things about me that I want to change so that I can have a better relationship, so that I do know Him and that He knows me, because I'm absolutely terrified of spending eternity separated from Him. So
mm,
I think I look at that more than anything else. Like, hey, I did what you wanted me to do. Like, I look at way more than that. Like, not only did I do what you wanted me to do, but I know you, and you know me.
mm, mm.
You know my name, and I know
Yeah.
yours.
So tell me, I mean, and maybe this is a little too vulnerable, but like, give me an example. What's something that you think you need to work on?
Well, we all have our vices and personal issues. I won't say what mine is, but I'll just say that I know that it keeps me separated from God, and I'm
Mm,
working on it as much as I can. Um, I pray about it, and I try to repent. I try to renew my mind to the things of God and away from that thing that keeps me separated from Him. It is a
Mm,
struggle and a journey, but I think every man has it. Most of
mm.
us are better at dealing with this particular vice than others, but we get through it. Um,
Yeah.
it, it for a long time I thought it was alcohol, but I've been sober for over 8 years,
Mm,
so it's not that, but it's a one vice that I think we're all very familiar with as men because it pertains to a particular need that we have, and
mm.
that's my greatest vice, and that's what I'm trying to work on and do away with. It's never been uh, profane language because if you work at not cussing, you can stop. It's never been
Yeah.
alcohol because I quit when my son was born. It's never been drugs because I don't like needles and I don't like the way drugs make you feel and what they do to you. Um, it's never been a lot of other things. And this isn't to throw shade or anybody under the bus. We all have our stuff. There are certain things that I just won't, partake in, and there's certain things that I will, depending on what it is. Um, but I'm working to fix those things, and I'm working to strengthen my relationship, my spiritual walk, and be a better man and a better human being for not just myself, but for my children, people that I call friends, and a future significant other.
Yeah. Something that I think that we all do, especially as Christian men, is you strike me as someone who's very similar to me in that you probably beat yourself up a little bit more than you should, you
Oh yeah,
know, and
oh yeah,
you're your own worst critic. I don't think when we get to the judgment bar, at least in my case, God is going to have to do a lot of judging. I'll beat myself up enough. But I think the one thing that I think it's important for people to know in all of these vices, I heard this once just recently. Uh, God isn't going to love you more when you become better. There's
yeah.
nothing
No,
you
that's true.
there's nothing you can do to make him love you more or love you less.
Yeah,
He loves you 100% right now.
yep,
And he's gonna in this journey you're on, I firmly believe this journey you're on, the fact that you're trying, the atonement will come forward and fix those things. And he's walking with you right now. You may be quote unquote separated because of some sort of sin or something like that. But as long as you are repenting and trying, he's walking with you. You know what I
yep.
mean?
I believe that 100%, most
Yeah.
definitely.
And I think another thing I got to commend you on is a lot of guys don't admit that they've got something that they've got to work on. You
Oh,
know what I
man.
mean? That alone is going to make you a better husband for whoever this person is that you either the one you're hoping it is or some other person it ends up
Yeah,
being. That you'll be that person. And another thing that's interesting that I've noticed in our in our age group is you're nice and you got a job. It's not going to be hard for you to find somebody.
well, and you know
the,
what? It's
the
funny you
pool of
say that.
dudes is pretty. The pool of dudes in your circumstance, you're
Yeah,
at the top, man.
it's funny, man. My buddy was saying that the other day. He goes, bro. He calls my car. I drive this blacked out Chrysler, and he goes, bro. You driving around in a Batmobile, living in a mini mansion. What woman wouldn't want you? I was like, first off, bro, it's not a mini mansion. It's just a regular little house. And secondly, it is a Batmobile, but that's not like I've always been the kind of guy that's I don't care about material things
Hmm.
at all.
Hmm.
I've
Yeah.
never cared about material things. I've never been the kind of dude that's like, I need these shoes, I need these clothes, I need this house, I need this car, I need this and that. Never been that kind of guy. I was happy just knowing that I have grass because I
Mm,
grew up in a neighborhood where we didn't have grass.
mm,
I have my own grass that I cut with my mower.
hmm.
That to me is like everything, bro.
Yeah.
Like I can
That's
I,
you know,
I don't
it's
I don't care
that's
about material things at all. I wear the
see
same
that.
clothes every day anyway.
It's funny you say that because I wish I spent a lot of time. I'm an attorney, and so I've done pretty well financially. And I was the type of guy, my parents, as great as they are, they've struggled financially most of my childhood. And like
Mm,
I said, my dad was a drug addict for a long time. So I kind of grew up thinking to myself, well, if I just didn't do drugs and I made all the money, everything was going to be okay. Right. I just recently heard a quote somebody said, I think it was Jim Carrey said, I wish everybody's dreams would come true so that they would see that that is not going to fix it. Right. Because, because all of my dreams did come true. I had all the things, and it was so funny because I remember thinking, well, if I just made X amount of dollars, I'd be happy, and then I did, and I'm like, well, if I just had the big house, and then it was the car, and then it was another car, and then it was a movie theater in my house, then it was a pinball machine, and every single one of those things, the next thing never filled the hole.
Mhm,
You know what I mean? And then I
mhm,
realized it's not about those things. It kind of goes back to something that you said, which is it's about the relationships you have. So I have more fun, like I tend to go overboard on everything. I just did this giant WrestleMania weekend with my 2 boys. I'm taking my daughter down to Disneyland this next week and doing all these things, but I often wonder, I go, "You know what? I could have just as much experience as taking him to the park with a Frisbee." You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And and that is more fulfilling than the fancy car,
yeah,
you know? It's just when you have money, it's just one less thing to worry about. You know what I mean?
pretty much. When you
Yeah.
one thing that uh, 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 a guy I know, he's very well off. He says, dude, says money's a tool. He's like,
Mhm.
I use it to create better situations for myself and other people. He's like, but I don't care about it. If I lose it
Mhm.
tomorrow, I'm not going to lose my mind because I lost all my money. He's like,
Mhm.
you know what? I'm still going to have my salvation.
Mhm.
I'll still have a roof over my head because my house is paid for. So I don't
Mhm.
have to worry about that, but I'll still have my salvation. I'll still
Yeah.
be free. I'll still have children that love me. I'll still have a wife that'll support me. He's like, but dude, money's a tool. He's like, with or
Yeah.
without it, I'm still going to be who I am.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
see money as the same thing. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong. I need money because I got bills I got to pay, but
Sure.
I don't need it to be happy or feel fulfilled.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
I don't need to be the wealthiest dude on the street and
Yeah.
drive the nicest car and live in the biggest house. I don't need any of that stuff. All I need is a bed, a TV, a place to sit, some food, and my kids, and the love of
Yeah.
a good woman. And that's it.
Yeah. So tell me, you have your boy, and I've met him. He's every time you're at a wrestling show, he's there with you, you know. And tell me how becoming a father changed you.
Um, something that I I put into my mind about being a dad was this is the closest I get to be like God.
Mm.
Right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Kids go to their dad for everything.
Mhm.
We go to God for everything. He doesn't give us everything. He gives us what we need,
Mhm.
just like a father. Father
Mhm.
gives you what you need. He may not give you
Mhm.
what you want all the time, but he gives you what you need: wisdom, understanding, trust, a friend, guidance,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
comfort, safety, right? So becoming a dad, I got to do stuff with like, and I get to do stuff with my son that I used to wish my dad would do.
Mhm.
I tell my son I love him every single day.
Mhm.
I hug him every chance I get. Uh, I try to divert him from video games and TV as much as I can because as a kid, you kind of just get placed in front of the TV and left alone.
Right.
So I tell my son, he says, Dad, I want you to play with me. I said, okay, but it's not going to be video games or TV.
Mm.
Let's go
Mhm.
outside and play catch. Let's play
Mhm.
catch with your baseball glove or with the football. Let's go for a run. Let's go to the basketball court. You can school me on the basketball court again. Let
Mhm.
me watch you ride your dirt bike. Help me cut the grass. You know,
Mhm.
I try to do things with my son in that manner. He'll say, "Hey, Dad, play with toys." I say, "I'll try to play with his toys with him, but like he doesn't understand the way my knees and my back are set up, so he just thinks I can get down there with him." And I'm like, "Okay, we'll play with toys for a minute, but can we go do something else that's a little more active?"
Mhm.
Um, but the day he was born, man, I lit up like a Christmas tree, man. And I'll never
Mhm.
forget that night. I walked out of the hospital and I sat outside and I looked up at the sky and I said, okay, today's the day I stop drinking.
Mm.
And then I said, okay, Lord, you've given me a son. I need you to help me raise this son that you've given me. I need you to provide me with the necessary tools, wisdom, and understanding so that I can take care of this son that you've given me. I walked back in the hospital and they were finished cleaning him off and all the other stuff, and they wrapped him up and they let my wife hold him, and or my ex-wife. They let her hold him, and I watched her cry and I cried, and then I got to hold him. And man, that kid took me, man. From the moment I
Yeah.
had him, he had me around his finger. Same thing happened with my daughter. When she was born, man, I watched her come into the world, and I was the first one to hold her. And I let her mom see her because her mom couldn't hold her at the time. So I held her, and I talked to her, and I told her, I said, "Hey, look here, little lady, I'm going to take best care of you as I can." I did the
Mhm.
same thing. I said, "Okay, you give me a daughter. I need the wisdom and understanding to take care of her. I need I need the ability to provide for her." So um, God hasn't let me down yet, in either for either one of my kids.
Oh man, I gotta tell you, man, I've got 2 and 2. I got 2 boys, 2 girls, and I'll tell you what, those girls came, man, it was a different vibe.
Definitely.
When the boys came in, I'm like, "All right, I got someone to wrestle with now. I got someone to go to all my sports things with. I got this
Yep.
dude who," and I do like my boys are older than yours, it's 17 and 11. And and you know, like I said, take them to basketball games, take them to, the girls though, man, they're just it's like I just like my I feel bad for my daughter because my son, I have a daughter who's 15, and my son, he likes to walk around, the neighborhood. He likes to kind of go out and do things late at night. He'll go on a walk late at night or whatever. And then my daughter asked, she's like, "Can I go outside and go on a walk?" I was absolutely not.
Heck no.
It was like, that
Not
sounds
without
that
me.
sounds like an unsolved mystery waiting to
Right.
happen. You know what
You
I mean?
can't go without me. You're not
Yeah,
going without me.
right, right.
Oh, let
So
me let me go get my friend, and then we'll go.
yeah, right. Yeah. So now, talk to me about. So now you got an ex-wife, and you have the mother of your daughter. Talk to me about co-parenting. How hard is that, man?
Co-parenting with my daughter's mom is not bad. It's
Mm,
it's not bad at all.
hmm.
Co-parenting with my ex-wife is, brother, it's rough.
Yeah,
I mean, it is rough. Um,
more like parallel parenting than co-parenting.
in a sense, yeah, we're
Yeah.
basically existing with each other in regard to our son.
Mm,
I don't know what it is. I don't hate my ex-wife, man. I don't resent her. I don't dislike her. Uh, but I wish that things could be better. The courts got involved. She's making me pay her support and all this other stuff, and it's just dumb, man. And as much as I love my son and I'm with my son and the things that we do together, it makes no sense. But uh, it is what it is with that situation. My daughter's mom was like, "Hey, come see your daughter whenever you want. If I need anything, I'll just send you a text.
hmm.
I'm going down next week to see my daughter." So, and she's like, "Yeah,
Hmm.
you can come down anytime." She's in Lancaster, so I drive all the way down there or catch a plane to go
Hmm.
see her. But or they'll fly up here sometime. But co-parenting with my daughter's mom, easy, easy peasy. Co-parenting with my
Hmm.
ex-wife,
Hmm.
not so
Man.
easy. It's a
So is
struggle.
it a situation, some of these guys, like I've had, I don't know, have you met the Godfather of Swole, Rafael Palma?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We've actually worked each other in a match.
Oh, you
Uh,
have?
yeah, we've worked each other. He's a good
Yeah,
dude. He's a good
he
dude.
is. He's a
Yeah,
really good dude. I had him on the podcast, and he had a real rough go with
yeah.
his ex. I'm sure he probably shared it with you. And do you feel like there's a little bit of parent alienation going on in that situation, or is it? I mean, what would you?
I think that I think it's a case of just hardcore resentment. You know,
Mm,
my ex-wife might. I don't know if this is really how she feels, so I won't speak on it as if I do. But she may feel like I wasted some years of her life with our marriage.
mm,
She
mm,
may feel betrayed. She may feel upset. She may feel a lot of things. I don't know. Um, I don't feel betrayed. I don't regret marrying her. I don't regret the relationship that we had, but people who get married know that over time people change. And if you're unwilling to change with each other and grow with each other and work on things together as well as an individual, you'll drift apart.
right.
Um, and we drifted apart. It's just one of those things that happened. Um, I wish that I knew why she felt the way that she feels, or she feels the way that she feels. I don't know if she does or not, but I know that you know at the end of things, the only thing that should be important is our son and his relationship with both of us, and him growing up saying, "Yeah, my parents split, but they never treated me differently. They loved me the same, and they respected each other."
Hmm.
So,
How's your son's relationship with his mom? Is it okay?
man, he loves his mom. He
Mm,
loves his mom. Um, he's always with her when he's not with me and she's not working. Uh, he loves his mom. They go places all the time, sometimes on my dollar, most of the time on my dollar.
yeah.
But they he loves his mom. That's his whole world, his queen. That's his mom. He loves his mom. He hates being separated from her and not being able to talk to her. Um, but yeah, he's a straight up mama's boy.
Nice.
Yep.
So now shifting gears a little bit, how long have you been in the sheriff's office now?
So I'm in year 4. I just started year 4 in April, so 3 years.
Mm,
Um, I came on and so they don't count your build up time in the academy, but I came on in 2020. I
mm,
was offered a job and received my peace officer standards and training certification in 2021. I came on in 2021 and I've been on ever since. Um, so being a peace officer, being a cop has always been my dream. Um, as a child, I was asked what I wanted to do: play football or be a cop. I played football, so I was like, well, let me go be a cop
mm,
now. It took me a long time to become a cop. The trial and error that I faced trying to become a cop, even after military service, it sucked. But I'm appreciative to Sacramento County and the sheriff's office for the opportunity because they were the only ones that could look past my family history and my
mm,
upbringing and my past and go, "We'll give you a job because you've become the individual that you wanted to be, which is
mm,
better than what you were and better than where you came from." So,
mm. That stuff goes into it, like where you came from and like your family history and all that. I mean,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely,
Wow.
dude. I got an older sister that robbed a bank in 1994. Okay,
Jeez.
so
Uh-huh.
they asked me all kinds of questions, and I didn't shy
Yeah.
away from any of them. I didn't lie about
Right.
anything. You ever smoke weed?
Sure.
Yep. You got
Hmm.
you got family that are felons? Yep. You
Hmm.
ever been arrested for anything? Yep.
Mm,
Never. I never shied away from anything.
hmm.
Um, yep.
Yeah. So now, being that you are from, kind of the family that you have family who's felons, and you've been arrested yourself. Do you feel like that kind of puts you in a better position as a peace officer to kind of deal with some of the people that you're dealing with?
Yes, because
Mm,
I come from the same cloth as a lot of people we deal with.
mm,
Right. I come from a rough neighborhood. I grew up in poverty. I know what it's like to be stopped by a police officer and asked for my ID, even though I
mhm,
didn't commit a crime. I know what it's like to be detained lawfully and unlawfully. I know what it's like to have guns pointed at you and being told, stop, turn around, get down on your knees, place your hands behind your head, and lock your fingers, cross your ankles, do not move. Um, I know what it's like to be looked at as if I could be a potential threat. I've been on both sides of this. Most people don't understand the side of law enforcement, and most people on the law enforcement side don't understand the civilian side of things. I've been on both. Um, and funny enough, although I always wanted to be a cop, my whole life I was afraid of cops.
Mm,
And I became a cop to understand what the heck I was so afraid of.
mm,
Because you always fear what you don't understand.
mm-hmm.
And until you obtain some form of understanding, you'll be in fear. So I wanted to know what the heck I was scared of. And I finally found out what I was afraid of. And what I was afraid of was lack of understanding of both sides of things.
Mm,
Um, if if I'm walking down the street and I display certain traits and characteristics and commonalities of individuals who are up to no good, I'm basically putting myself out there to potentially be detained and asked questions. Now, lawful detention or a consensual encounter, they're both two different things. Um, like, and I'll give you an example of that. If I say to you, "Hey, sir, you got a minute to talk?" That's a consensual encounter. But if I say, "Hey, stop, come here, I need to talk to you," that's a detention,
mm,
right?
mm-hmm.
So, majority of my younger life, I was detained a lot
Mm,
just for being in the neighborhood that I was in. And I might have looked suspicious because I was wearing a hoodie and a beanie, baggy jeans, right? So I, I, I wanted to know what the heck I was afraid of, and I wanted to understand the law enforcement side of things. So I've strived to become one.
mm,
And now that I am one, I understand what it is actually that I was afraid of. And what I was afraid of was a peace officer being afraid of unknown circumstances when engaging with a person or people,
mm, mm-hmm.
right? They're human too. Cops are human too, right? The objective is to go home at the end of the day. The unpredictable nature of people, right? We don't know what a person is thinking when we get behind them in a patrol vehicle and stop them on a vehicle stop. We don't
Mm-hmm.
know how a person's going to open the front door when we show up for a call for service. We don't know. So you prepare your mind for situations that you think might happen, and you
Mm-hmm.
always start with the worst possible outcome. So
Mm-hmm.
it's, you know, kind
Yeah.
of went off on a tangent there.
What is no, that's okay. What so as a sheriff officer, what are the like worst kind of calls for you?
I can't say for me, because right now I don't work patrol. I work as a
Mm,
bailiff,
mm,
but um, the potential person that I would like to be with works. She works patrol,
mm,
and for her or anybody else that I know that works patrol, the majority of the time, the calls for service that they say are the worst are domestic violence, and then
mm,
high risk vehicle stops, high risk felony vehicle stops.
mm,
Domestic violence calls are so unpredictable. You don't know what's happening. You get a call for service about a domestic violence incident in progress. You show up, husband beating up his wife, but then husband randomly pulls out a gun and starts shooting.
mm,
Or boyfriend's beating up girlfriend, stabbing her with a knife. You go and the door opens and you physically see this man stabbing this woman with a knife. Then he gets up and comes at you with a knife in a matter of seconds. You just
mm,
never know.
mm.
But it's so unpredictable. No call is ever the same. You don't know what you're going to get just because the computer in your vehicle says, "Hey, you're showing up to this." It changes in a matter of seconds. So what
Yeah.
people consider routine is actually not routine.
Well, and on top of that, also, I mean, you got to be on like all the time. Any call, you got to. I mean, the adrenaline's pumping, and you're trying to make split-second decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think people understand that. I mean, I just think about things I say to my kids in the moment when I'm trying to deal with them,
Yeah,
and you know what I mean, and the mistakes I make and the things I'm trying to explain to them in real time, let alone,
yeah,
and they don't have a knife or a gun or something like that. I mean, I'm thinking about trying to stop my two sons from just wrestling too hard,
yeah,
and some of the things I say or do, the mistakes I make. Imagine walk, you know, guns and knives and all of those things happen. I mean, that's crazy.
It's weird. But even like, dude, even at the courthouse, a person can be pissed off because they're going to go to jail for
Mhm.
violating a court order or not paying support or whatever it is that they're dealing with. They want to fight you now.
Mm.
So now you're fighting somebody that's 6'5", 365 pounds. And
Mhm.
there's a use of force threshold. And it's up to you to now meet that use of force threshold. And I can tell you now, 6'5", 365, I'm not fighting that person.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm not
Mhm.
going to fight that person.
Mhm.
I'm five
Mhm.
foot six, dude. I weigh 200 pounds. I'm not fighting a 6'5", 365 pound man.
Right.
So
Right.
it is what it is.
Yeah. So tell me now. So you do that? What do? You tase them? Or
I'm not going to provide a response for that, but I'm definitely not. I'm not tasing a 6'5",
no?
365 pound man either. That's trying to
Okay.
fight me. That wants to hurt me or kill me potentially. I'm not going to tase that person.
So tell me what do you have a specific courtroom that you're in?
Yeah, I work. So I work currently in a domestic violence and elder abuse, and yeah, I work in a domestic violence, elder abuse restraining order, and a child support courtroom.
Interesting. So do you? How long you been in there?
Um, Going on a year and a half now.
Who's your judge?
Judge, she just was appointed judge last Wednesday. She's going to be sworn in on the 20th, but her name is Jay Abadiga.
Oh, okay. So she's brand new.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's new. She's
Oh,
family law
okay.
judge. So yeah,
Who was it before her?
that's the only judge I've ever worked for.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Interesting. Wow. Man. Yeah. So I bet that calendar, the domestic violence restraining orders, gets
man, we get some interesting ones. And
yeah.
oftentimes I get people who come in with warrants.
Mm,
So you come in with a warrant and it's a serious warrant, I'm going to take you to jail
right. Hmm.
because,
Man.
you
Mhm.
shall. So
Do you like being in the bailiff, or would you rather be a patrolman?
I'd rather be on patrol.
Hmm. And that's
Uh,
kind of the way most of them do it, right?
Bailiffing is cool. It's a good experience. But if you really want to do the job, go to patrol. There's
Hmm.
opportunity to promote. There's opportunity to work specialty assignments. There's opportunity to reach the community in a different way. So I'd rather work patrol because there's a lot more opportunity. Plus, like I said, man, I'm almost 40. I don't want to be chasing people at 40 and 42 and 43. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Right. Right.
I want to be either in a nice assignment or working as an instructor at the academy, which is what I actually want to do is become an
Hmm.
instructor at the Sheriff's Academy and train the next batch of recruits to get into the job. I enjoy training, and I feel like I have a lot of information and tools and way of thinking and grit that I could pass down to some of these recruits who have no idea what they're stepping into. Because this job is not it's not like what you see on TV in any way. It
Hmm.
ain't all shoot 'em up, bang bang car chases. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of talking to people. It's a lot of knowing how to communicate in situations where an individual is having a mental health emergency. You
Hmm.
know, um, there's a lot of stuff that go into this job. You wear a lot of hats, not
Hmm.
just one. You're not just a peace officer who carries a gun and wears a badge. You're a freaking doctor sometimes because you're providing CPR, first aid to people. You're a counselor, a marriage counselor, a relationship counselor. You're a teacher. You're an advisor. A freaking uh, you're a pet sitter. You do all kinds of stuff, man. So it's not, like just the other day, my best friend was like, "Yeah, we saved a duck." Sure enough, they saved a duck. Like this job,
Right.
this stuff that happens on this job. So
Man. So if you could say, because we know that this is a pretty rough, it's a tough topic because there's so many people who, you hear about unarmed men being shot, or there's defund the police and Black Lives Matter and all these different things. Is there something on the law enforcement side that you think needs to change or could be done better to help the community?
communication. with the community,
Mm-hmm.
training seminars, providing understanding. A lot of people think that uh, what cops do is this hidden secret, and it's not. You can look up penal codes on the internet. You can look up
Mm-hmm.
radio codes on the internet. You can look up case law and all kinds of stuff on the internet. But I think that as peace officers, we should definitely try to educate people and talk to people and explain to them why situations are the way that they are. A lot of the time, we don't do that for a few reasons, but one of the main ones is you can't communicate with people who don't want to listen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they do listen, they're not listening to understand, they're listening to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the whole defund the police thing, the whole Black Lives Matter thing, I've always been, as a black man, I've always had this mindset of if Black Lives matter, then they should matter to black people first.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones that are hurting and doing more damage to ourselves and our community than anybody else. Nobody gets into an uproar when Tyrone kills Pookie,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody gets pissed off when Officer Dagwood shoots Tyrone.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they lack understanding as to what the premise was. Just like the young man recently that was shot and killed by police. Mother was on the news. They shot my baby. They killed my baby. Your son pulled a gun out and shot two cops,
Mm-hmm.
tried to take their life. And so those police officers did their job and defended themselves and other people, right? You may use force that which is necessary in defense of yourself, in defense of others, to prevent the commission of a crime, to prevent the destruction of evidence, like, you know what I mean? To
Mm-hmm.
prevent someone from harming themselves. Like, it's part of the policy for all law enforcement agencies per freaking post. Like, you use force to protect yourself and other people. This dude shot two cops, so they shot back, and everybody was like, "Oh no, they killed this black man. He wasn't unarmed. He shot at us."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The George Floyd situation was really unfortunate. The officers that were there acted poorly. They could have stopped Officer Chauvin from being in the position that he was in. But the autopsy report showed that George Floyd, not only did he pass away from what was in his body, but he died from a heart attack. He died from a heart attack. It wasn't from just what Officer Chauvin did and him not being in a comfortable position, but he died from a heart attack. What they did was disgusting. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they
Mm-hmm.
could have pulled him off. They could have tried to separate him. They could have did whatever they needed to, but they didn't. They just stood by and watched it. And I thought that whole thing was disgusting, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't think that defunding the police is going to make any change. I don't think that the Black Lives Matter protests and all this stuff. Like, I hate to talk about this stuff because it's political, right? But I see
Mm-hmm.
both sides of everything. And as a black man who comes from a community where we did have some stuff go on with law enforcement, um, the times have changed. And I believe that having the ability to communicate on both sides is important. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
unwilling to listen, nobody's going to listen.
Who do you think is most likely? Who is most unwilling to listen? Do you think it is these communities that are probably where a lot of the crime is coming, or do you think it's from the police? Which side do you think is having a harder time listening to the other side?
I I'll say this: if I wasn't in law enforcement and didn't understand this side of it, I probably wouldn't listen to law enforcement trying to tell me something because I would still feel like they're the enemy.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
not.
One thing I've noticed that's been really a hard thing right now is in all political things, really. It's hard to have I've stopped talking about it because everyone is so entrenched. It's actually rather fascinating to think that I remember having a conversation with somebody about this very topic and talking about, because I learned, as a lawyer, I learned about the studies, and the studies show that African American men are end up in in prison more than white men for the same crimes. Those things do happen. It may be getting better, but it's still, and I explain it is an issue of systemic racism because the judiciary and law enforcement is part of the system. So if people are getting arrested, a certain type of person is being arrested more, that's systemic. If someone's being sentenced worse based on the color of the skin, that's systemic. But I can say those things and I can be like, well, we've been seeing since Rodney King, they still won't believe you. And it's on both sides, right? Like it doesn't matter what you can show them all the evidence in the world. They just are going to believe what they want to believe. The evidence doesn't matter. People aren't willing to sway. I view that, and this happens on both sides of any issue. The definition of closed-mindedness to me is when you take the information and you filter it through your preconceived notions, and you're not willing to think that maybe the other side has a point, right? And I just see that on both sides, and I don't know how we get out of that. You're in a very odd position because you've been on both sides, so you
Yeah,
understand both sides.
yeah.
But not everybody can get that, and I just wonder how we break those barriers and start having real conversations.
People got to be more mature
Yeah.
and start talking and be
Mhm.
willing to listen to understand rather than listen to respond.
Yeah.
People just don't. People just aren't mature. They don't want to mature and talk about things. And then a sad thing about people in general is we hate to face reality and hold ourselves accountable.
100%.
Right?
Drives me nuts.
A victim will always, or not even that. I won't say that. I'll say people who play victim
Mhm.
will never hold themselves accountable for being the subject of something else, creating another victim.
Right.
That's in
100%.
that's in a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
My stance and perspective is I have to do and say the right thing if I'm going to present myself as someone in authority.
Mhm.
I'm not going to place myself in a bad spot where I'm like, do and say this, but I do and say that.
Mhm.
It looks bad on me. It looks bad on the agency. It looks bad on anybody else that's doing it. So I think the biggest thing is people have to mature and start having the conversation and being willing to listen and understand rather than just provide a response. Most of the time, people are too busy trying to respond and they don't care about what's being said because nobody wants to be wrong and everybody
Mhm.
wants to be right.
Right.
It's okay to lack understanding. The only way you get understanding is if you freaking seek it.
Right.
And you can't understand if you're unwilling to listen.
Yeah.
So,
Man. Man. Well, I got to tell you, man, we've talked about everything but wrestling.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so you recently, well, let's talk about it for a minute. You recently kind of decided that you're no longer going to wrestle. What was the decision making in that?
So I was diagnosed with a form of cancer last year
Mm.
in July of last year. And because of that, I was like, okay, I can't wrestle anymore. My doctor was like, yeah, take it easy. We're going to see what's going on. So I started to take it easy. I hadn't been training much anymore. Uh, I wanted to, but I hadn't been. Uh, and then I started like having less and less matches, and I stopped having a passion and desire to want to wrestle.
Mm.
So I just stopped. I had my last match um, just after Pig Bowl in January, and I was clear from my diagnosis shortly after that. Um, but my passion and desire to wrestle just isn't there anymore
Mm.
because there's so much going on in the business now, and I'm just like, I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the biggest thing for me was me being sick, and then my passion for it just dissipated. I just
Yeah.
didn't like I wasn't excited about it anymore. I didn't feel
Mhm.
like, oh man, I can't wait to work this match and go out there and have fun. And I just my mind wasn't in it anymore, and I started to feel myself drift from my mind being in it when I couldn't even remember simple stuff in matches.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I was like, I'm going to hurt somebody if I don't get out of here. So I just walked
Yeah.
away. Um, I don't get me wrong. Like I miss, sometimes I miss, putting on the gear and getting in the ring and performing in front of people and telling a story. But part of me is like, I just don't want to do it anymore. I still love it. I'll still watch it. I'll still go support other guys. I'll still go to a training every now and then and learn from Ugly and see how the kids that he's training are doing and see how some of the other kids and some of the other training schools are doing. But I'm not openly putting myself out there to just wrestle anymore.
Right.
I just don't have a, I really don't have a passion to do it anymore.
Yeah. It makes sense, man. And that's the thing. When you get to be our age and you got so much stuff going on, it's hard, man. Like it's hard to, I've been doing a lot of shows in the Bay Area lately, and God, when you get a call time at 4 or 5 o'clock, and you got to leave at 3, you got kids at home, and you got to figure out where everybody's going. Like that, I had that happen not too long ago. I can't even remember where I was driving. Oh, it was a show. We went to Vacaville, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you were
yeah,
there, yeah. And I'm just like, okay, so my son has to be here, my daughter has to be there. I had to call my dad, have him come out. You know what I mean? Like have him help me. My son drive someone somewhere so I could go drive up to Vacaville. And I had a great time working, you know what I mean? But it's like all of that to get up there, do the show, leave, get back at about midnight. You know what I mean? And you just that's a rough go. If you're not passionate about it anymore, that's real tough. You know what
yeah.
I mean?
It was like taking the drives and a lot of the time, and some people might not know this, but a lot of the time, dude, I worked matches for free. I never took a
Mhm.
payout.
Mhm.
I just would
Mhm.
work and leave. I didn't care
Mhm.
about the money.
Mhm.
I didn't care about a payout. I didn't care about merch sales, none of that stuff. I did it because I enjoyed wrestling. And I think some people would look at that and go, dude, like, what are you doing?
Mhm.
Like, you don't do this for free. Like, well, for me, it's not something that I'm chasing as a career anymore. It's a hobby, dude. It's fun for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And once it stopped being fun, I was like,
Why
you
do
know,
it? Yeah.
yeah,
No, I get it. I get it, man. Well, listen, I want to ask you. We'll wrap up. Let me ask you 3 questions I ask everybody on here.
yeah.
So, first question is, what would you consider to be your biggest success in life?
Becoming a father,
Mm.
becoming a
Mhm.
dad. There's little people that look at me like I'm Superman.
Yeah.
Reality is I'm not, but my son thinks the world of me.
How
And
old
my
is your son
daughter,
again?
he's 8.
He's 8, and then your daughter's 2.
She'll be 2 in September.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
both look at me like I'm just this awesome thing, and I'm like, I'm really not. I'm just a guy who was blessed to have you guys.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun, dude. And the thing is it just gets better. Like
Yeah,
mine are 17, 15, 13, and 11. Well, almost 11. And it's just so cool to watch them develop into people with interests and drive and passions and weaknesses and failures and having to I mean, you'll see this as they both get older. You can't parent them the same way. You know what I
nope,
mean? They've
yeah,
all got they've all got different certain quirks and things that you have to work with and you have to
yeah,
adjust to.
yeah,
And there's not, and it's funny because some of them like the things you like. I was just having a conversation with a best friend about this. We were talking about our kids, and he's talking about how he was having a hard time connecting one on one with some of them, and it was just kind of one of these things where it's like, yeah, sometimes they aren't into the things you're into. You have to get into the things they're into. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
you know, I don't know a thing. I don't know a thing about Pokemon, but my son loves it, and so I listen to all that stuff, all the cards and all the games and everything. I play along. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So it's interesting. What would you think is your biggest failure in life, and what did you learn from it?
My biggest failure was divorce.
Mm, mhm,
What I learned from it was if there's a second one, humble myself, be willing to go the extra mile, uh, do what's necessary to save this investment, because that's what marriage is, dude. You're investing in a business partner for the rest of your life. And if business goes bad, there's a lot that you can lose, and there's very little that you can gain.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely say my biggest regret uh, is divorce. I never wanted to get divorced, but I also didn't want to be unhappy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to be unhappy and feel unappreciated and feel lonely laying next to a person that you love.
Yeah, people who haven't been there, and it's not like you just are fighting over the dishes. You know
No,
what I
man,
mean?
it's
It's
deeper than that.
it's so deep, unless you've been in that place where you're considering it, you don't understand. You may think you understand, you don't.
It ain't all love and rainbows and unicorns. Like
No.
marriage ain't got nothing to do with love, dude. It's a business.
That
And
that whole that whole
man,
idea of that whole idea of quote unquote irreconcilable differences, like if they if they're I'm sorry, I'm of the opinion if there's two people there that are just saying we just grew apart and we got divorced, they're lying. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it is not, people who that there is it's heart-wrenching,
yeah.
and it can go on for years before you finally make that decision. It's really rough.
And
So I
that's
feel
what it
you.
was for me. I went on an additional couple of years
Hmm. Hmm.
trying, and I was so unhappy. I regret it not because I didn't put the work in. I regret it because I waited too long to walk away.
Mm. Mhm.
I endured more hurt and more pain trying to fix it.
Mm.
And dude, I learned so much about myself and patience from those moments.
Mm.
Um, I tell you, man, when that weight was lifted, the I have never experienced that amount of peace in my life.
Mm.
Bro, I was sitting in a room in my house. I had no furniture in here. It was just me and an air mattress, and I was at total peace.
Mm. Man.
Like,
Yeah, man, you're striking a chord, dude.
man, straight up. My goodness gracious. And I'm happier now. I'm happier in my
Mhm.
life now. I'm single, but I'm happier in my life now.
Yeah.
I'm single till I ain't. So hopefully this young lady decides to.
Yeah, she starts to step up, huh?
We'll see. We'll see. She's a good woman, man. But we'll see.
Well, right on. Well, I hope it works out for you and her. Uh, Last question. One day, way down the road, you're going to pass away. And when you do, there'll be a funeral and someone will give your eulogy. What is the one thing you hope somebody says about you in your eulogy?
If you cry, get out. That
Right
man
on.
loved everybody, treated
Mhm.
everybody well. He loved God. He wanted people to be here to celebrate, laugh,
Mhm.
smile, crack a joke, roast this man. That's what he wants. So if you hear crying because you're sad that he's gone, you need to go because he don't
Mm.
want that. He wants you to smile. He wants you to be happy. He wants you to know that he's on his way to eternity, and it's okay for you to roast him and crack a joke. He lived a full life. He took care of his children. He did everything he wanted to do.
Yeah.
You don't cry for a man like that.
Yeah. Right
You
on, man.
celebrate that man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited to see. It's funny. When I turned 43, the actuary tables, I think 86 is what they say men live to this time. So I realized I'm officially middle age, and so you're not quite there yet. But man, I'm excited to see what you do next, man. Because passionate people, they end up they find something else to get passionate about.
Yeah.
So
I I think for me, my passion is going to be devoted to my son as he gets older and he's in sports or something,
oh
and
yeah.
working to get him to be better. My best friend and I, our boys are the same age, and we're both wrestlers. So we're going to come out of retirement because we retired around the same time. and we came on at the same time. We're going to retire at the same time, and we're going to wrestle our boys, and we're going to take them on a 25-minute Broadway and mess them up.
I can't wait to see it, man. I'm gonna buy a ticket when that match
Straight up,
happens.
straight up tornado tag, bro. We're going to beat the brakes off our boys. We'll give them a little heat. We'll let them give us a little heat, but we're going to keep holding the reins.
Right on, man.
Yeah, man.
Listen. If people want to, you've said a lot of inspirational things, and I think a lot of things that are going to resonate. If somebody wants to find you on social media or wherever, where can they find you?
I have an Instagram. It is BFL Podcast, or I'm sorry, Be Forever Legendary on Instagram. Be Forever Legendary at Be Forever Legendary. I'm starting a podcast called the Be Forever Legendary Podcast. I have a YouTube channel called Be Forever Legendary Podcast. I'm not really a social media guy like that, but I do have a TikTok, and it's Black Steve Austin, because I do
Nice.
the whole Steve Austin thing. And I'm on Facebook. If I don't know you, I probably won't be a Facebook friend. I probably won't accept your friend request if I don't know you, because I share photos of my children and things like that. So if I don't know you, I don't want to share that side of my life. But yeah, that's where most people can find me. I don't have Twitter or any of that other stuff.
Right on.
Uh,
I'm excited to hit you. So, have you done any episodes yet, or you still
I
getting things
haven't
ready?
done a single episode. I have no idea what the heck I'm doing. I tried to talk to Joey about it. You know who Joey is, right?
Joey.
He wrestles in the Tag Rocket Rodeo Express.
Oh, okay. And he runs
Um,
one.
he runs a few, dude. He's on one, and then he does one as a co-host with freaking Rikishi, bro. So
Oh, nice.
I'm trying to get some tips from him on how to start one, or to get mine off the ground. Um, I don't know where to start. I don't even know what to talk about. But I know the main focus was to provide motivation to people, uplift
Yeah.
people, give people a sense of pride, and some care for themselves, so that they could be a better version of themselves.
Well, dude, I'll just tell you, I've done 140. I think 104. Yours will be like 144
Oh wow.
podcasts. Yeah, so I've done a bunch of them, bunch of wrestlers, a bunch of different people. It's a variety show. I call it's a human interest podcast because I'm the human and I'm interested, right?
Yeah.
So it's just everybody's stories. Everyone's got one. And the best advice I could tell you about the podcast is just start.
Yeah.
It's just get a mic. It's not hard, man. I'm doing this one in my AirPods. You can get a mic and a I have a mic and a headset that I use in my office, and you can do them like this on like a Zoom platform, and just start going, man. You'll figure it out. People aren't going to be listening for like the first 50 anyway,
Yeah.
right? And you're going to be terrible at, like, I go back and listen to the first 10 and I'm like, oh man, I've gotten so much better at this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, the first 10 or 15, you're just figuring it out. Like, I just called my friends, like Derevco. I called Derevco and I'm like, hey, you want to do a podcast? I got a friend who's a hairdresser. And we just BS'd and talked about life. You know what I mean? And then eventually it works its way out. You'll find your theme and you'll figure it out. But just start, because you can sit there and think about it forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So just go out there, and we need more motivational podcasts, man.
Yeah.
So just get out there and just start talking about, you could do it yourself. You can find people to interview, and I'll give you places where you can find people.
Man.
So
Yeah. I want to start. Derevko, by the way, one of my favorite people. I love that dude. He's awesome.
he's the funniest, man. He's the first guy. Him and Justin Caton, who runs Next Level,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're the first two guys I met in wrestling in 1998 with Oliver John. Oliver John was training a pro
Oh
I
yeah.
had.
Ollie's the dude, man. He has the best
He's
Jesse Ventura impression ever.
he's the best. He's the
Yep.
best.
Yeah.
So I walk in there, and literally those are the first two guys I meet, and we were all training together. And they guys, Derevko's just one of my best friends, man. He's hilarious, and he's been around forever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so, yeah, it's great, man. So that's a cool thing about wrestling, man, is like we would have never met probably. At
No.
least I wouldn't want you to pull me over or nothing, I wouldn't, but I wouldn't want you to,
Yeah.
show up at my house. But we would have never met if it wasn't for wrestling. And that's what's so cool about it, is this eclectic group that we become friends with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I've met some awesome freaking people in this business, and it's cool to say that I could talk to them away from wrestling.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Frost. Frosty's probably one of the coolest dudes ever. I talk to that dude all the time, away from
Oh, dude.
wrestling.
I
He's such
love
a good dude.
You know what was funny is I worked Frost for the first time at an Ugly Dojo show, and everybody told me that he was just gonna beat the piss out of me, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm like, all right, he's gonna lay it in. And he did, but it wasn't that bad. You know
No,
what I mean? He still works those punches.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it's hilarious to me because every time I worked him and he hits me, I swear to God, I'll be like, he'll beat me and he'll be like, brother, are you okay? I'm so sorry. And he'll pick me
Yeah.
up and give me something. Brother, how you feeling? I'm sorry. I love that guy.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he's one of those guys. I like every time I've had a chance to work with him, I've been super excited because I learned so
Yeah,
much from him because he's legit. Like he is an intimidating big dude.
he is. He's such
Yeah,
a solid man, but he's
but
one
he's
of the most kind and
yeah,
sweet,
he's a total
humble people,
sweetheart.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be sitting there
Like,
and
yeah, he'll
he'll
break
just
it in half, but he'll apologize after.
yeah, and he'll come in and he'll just be like he'll look so angry, and then next thing you know, he'd be like, yeah. Went to Disneyland, had a great time. We love Tinkerbell. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
just stuff like that. He's just so
Exactly.
crazy.
Exactly.
It's awesome, man. He's a
Yeah.
good dude. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, for those who've been listening, thanks for following along. Follow Joe's podcast. You always hit subscribe on this one too. We got more stuff coming on. Let's do this again, man. We'll do it
Yeah,
again.
absolutely, dude. Anytime, bro. I love being on podcasts. I've only been on a few in my life, so these are fun,
Yeah.
man. I like podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have you back on, especially as you get your podcast going, so that way we can cross promote. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Heck yeah. As soon as I can figure out how to get it going.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.